Good evening, and welcome to the 2019 New London Mayoral Debate. Tonight, the debate is sponsored by the New London Day. It's live on theday.com now and will be available taped as of tomorrow morning. Our second sponsor is the League of Women Voters of Southeastern Connecticut, and all of the volunteers in the room come from that organization. My name is Bernadette Golden. I'm with the League, and I'm your moderator tonight. I'd like to thank the New London Board of Education and the staff of Jennings School who have so generously allowed us to use this facility and set up this room for us. Our debate volunteers include timers, one assigned to each of our candidates so that they may be mindful of how much time they have to answer their questions. If you're interested in the League of Women Voters, we have a table in the back, and anyone is welcome to join, men and women these days. We're a nonpartisan political organization, and we encourage informed and active participation in government for all, and we're so happy to see so many people interested tonight. Our debate format tonight I'll explain in a moment. I'll just introduce the candidates because we'll be going alphabetically with the questions. And so we have Frida Berrigan representing the Green Party, Martin Olsen, the Republican Party, and Michael Passero, the Democratic Party. Paul Chouanier from the New London Day, he's the editorial page editor, will be asking the questions gathered from the community. And the format for the debate was agreed upon by the three candidates. There will be a full hour of debate as soon as we begin with the first question. And it will go as follows. Each candidate will have a 60-second opening statement, again, beginning in alphabetical order. At the end, we'll go in reverse alphabetical order with a 60-second closing statement. So each candidate will have the same total amount of time. Mrs. Berrigan would have the first question. She gets 60 seconds to respond. Mr. Olsen will also then respond for 90 seconds, and then she again will rebut for 30 seconds, and then Mr. Passero will get 30 seconds to respond as he chooses. And then we will switch, and it will be, hopefully, me who keeps us on the road, the correct map of who goes next. So now it's time for the first question.
Opening statement. Opening statement first?
No, the opening statement. See, I've done it already. Ms. Berrigan.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. It's great to see this room so full tonight. I haven't seen it this full since basketball classes. My name is Frida Berrigan. I'm your neighbor. Even though it was raining today, I walked here just over the hill from Connecticut Avenue, and I'm running for mayor as a member of the Green Party. Some characterize the Green Party as a minor party, but that's wrong. We have mighty ideals, and I'm in this race because New London needs these ideals, needs social justice, needs more ecological stewardship, needs more peace, and way more democracy. So I'll hope in the course of this debate to connect those ideals to the lives of our citizens. I'm running for mayor to listen and to learn and to uplift the great ideas that I hear from you. And I hope that you'll write me in on line E after this debate. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Marty Olsen, and I'm a Republican candidate for mayor, and I'm here to earn and ask for your vote. And I want to thank the Day and the League for sponsoring tonight and this exceptional crowd for coming out on a lousy night. This is just to let you know that the X means I'm an ex-New London High School football player. So when you see young folks around town, that's what it means. Now folks, as I've been going door to door around town, many of the issues that folks have been asking me about and want answers to, and I hope that we have a chance to discuss them all, include taxes, Fort Trumbull, our waterfront, State Pier, schools, school buildings, the sidewalk and curb program, the residency of our directors in the city charter, the Coast Guard Museum, blight, and we'll get into the rest as we go along. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks to the League of Women Voters and to the Day for sponsoring this, and especially thanks to all of you for coming out on such a wonderful weather evening. It's been my great honor to serve as your mayor for these past 4 years. The opportunity to work with all of you for the achievement of our city has been incredibly fulfilling. I appreciate this chance tonight to share with you some of my experiences over the past 4 years. I will be discussing our many successes as well as the challenges and, quite frankly, the disappointments and the failures. I believe going into this job, and I believe even stronger today, that we share a common vision for our city. We seek to create a sustainable and thriving economy that equitably benefits all segments of our wonderfully diverse city. We aspire to take full advantage of our city's great natural and cultural assets. We envision a city that lives up to its great heritage and a city that fulfills its rightful role as a leader of our region. So tonight, I welcome the opportunity to highlight the amazing progress we have made towards achieving this vision. I hope to gain your support and hope that you'll allow me to serve you for the next 4 years. Thank you.
I guess we go to the first question then. I want to thank the people in New London. I got loads of questions emailed to us. I probably won't be able to get to all of them, but better too many than not enough, so I appreciate the interest. Ms. Berrigan, you have said you want to give a voice to people in this city who have been underrepresented. Who do you mean, and how would that translate into policy if you are elected mayor?
Great. Who do I mean? Mostly I mean the first district, which in the last election didn't turn out in large numbers to vote. So those are my neighbors. Those are the people of Connecticut Avenue, of Cedar Grove, of Coit Street and Brainerd and Jefferson. And so those are the people that the Green Party is directing this campaign to. We're trying to do it in both English and Spanish. I was going to try and have a little Beto moment there, and habla en español, pero estoy un poco nervioso, y entonces voy a hablar en inglés. I think as mayor, I would make a real effort at being in 2 languages, speaking in 2 languages as much as possible, and then also provide childcare, both at city council meetings and at Board of Ed meetings, and I think that would help a lot.
Mr. Olsen, you get 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Folks, I'm here to represent everybody in our community, north to south, east to west, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I've got a good long track record of service to this community, and I ask for your support to continue in the capacity as mayor to lead this dynamic community that we all share. I might add that my phone rings just about every day with folks who've got concerns, issues, things they need to be addressed, and there's a reason for that. It's because I get things done, I follow through, and I answer my own phone. So I really look forward to your support so I can continue to give you the best effort possible for every citizen, voter and non-voter, because when you're elected to serve everybody. Not just a segment, but everybody. And as I look out over the room, I know most everybody in here. And I know that many of you have contacted me for one thing or another. And what I'm saying is fact and truth. So I thank you, and we'll pass the baton.
Ms. Berrigan, 30 seconds.
Well, just to pick up on the child care thing in particular, often there are very few people at city council meetings. These meetings happen at 7 o'clock at night on a Monday night, work night, and as somebody deeply interested in local government, I have great intentions all the time of showing up at these meetings, but don't hire a babysitter to take my husband on a date, and so probably am not going to hire a babysitter to go to a city council meeting. So in terms of participation, childcare would help a lot.
Mr. Passero? One
Yes.
minute.
Thank you. One of the greatest experiences of serving in my years on city council, especially now as mayor, has been able to get to, has been the opportunity to get to know the broad spectrum of our society. And I've striven very hard to represent everybody. That was the idea behind creating the community, the human resource director position. We have a community care team. We are trying very, very hard to make sure that all of the citizens in our community, the residents of our city, are fairly represented and involved. Thank you.
The next question, Mr. Passero, you respond to first.
Mr. Passero, storefront vacancy rates remain high in the core downtown. Do you see the lack of progress there as a first-term failure? And what approach might we expect if you were to win a second term?
I do not. I am, in fact, I believe quite the opposite. I believe the progress that we've made in the first 4 years is really beyond my original expectations. You have to understand that an empty storefront is not just missing a business. The empty storefronts in our downtown are there because the building behind the empty storefront needs to be completely redeveloped. A lot of these buildings have been vacant for decades. This is a problem that my administration inherited, and we've been working very hard. I'm going to give you one quick example in my remaining 20 minutes. The Cronin building. It was used as a warehouse for years and years and years, violating zoning rules. We focused on that. It is a slow process, 3 years, but we have managed to get that building sold, turned over to a responsible developer. It will be redeveloped. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and those storefronts will be filled. Look at the buildings that are redeveloped and look at the businesses that are in them. We are making progress.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 90 seconds.
The Green Party office is directly down from City Hall. We're at 165 State Street, and right now as we have this vantage point on State Street, and the busiest place is Yankee Peddlers, the pawn shop right down the street from our offices, and so that. Well, I hear what the mayor's saying about these things taking time. That being kind of the cornerstone right now of Upper State Street is unfortunate. And when we think about strong communities, we think about being able to walk within 15 minutes to meet our daily needs. Where do I buy a cup of coffee? Where do I buy a box of nails? Where do I buy a book? And right now, our downtown doesn't have a hardware store, doesn't have a bookstore, doesn't have many of these things that communities depend on for a healthy economic, a healthy kind of what's the word? Like a healthy outlook right downtown. And while we're talking about downtown, especially on a rainy day like today, let's talk about those awful trash receptacles that are more often than not inside out.
Mr. Passero?
Thank
30
you.
seconds.
Thank you. One of the hardest parts about our downtown is turning around some of the local people's perceptions. On any given weekend, you go down there and you see the excitement from the merchants that we have. Take the weekend this past August when CNBC was in town filming Carrie at Nora's Cupcakes, the latest business to move into town. This is a woman who chose New London, who chose to have an outlet in New London because she sees what's going on here and the vibrant community that's starting to grow. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
how much
it's
time do I have?
30 seconds.
Oh, okay. So we're building on that. You go and talk to Laura at Berry's Ice Cream. She just moved from one location to another, beautifully renovated. Go down to the Fair Trade store and talk to Ellen Cummings in there. I can't tell you how excited I am. By the way, the garbage receptacles that are very controversial are the choice of the business district, and they work. There's reasons for them. It's an idea imported from Paris. A lot of people find them not attractive, but they actually work and they keep the litter off our streets. And I believe in collaborating with the business people that are downtown and trying to deliver what they need. Thank you.
Mr. Olsen, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. The level of empty storefronts in our central business district has grown since we've changed our government 8 years ago. And it's, all you have to do is drive through and it's obvious. When the most prominent signage is live, work, and invest, to me that screams out empty store. We can do better, and we must do better. And a goal that I have is to create New London as a destination point. And the way we'll do that is by invigorating our downtown waterfront, which is a huge, major asset. Thank you.
Mr. Olsen, the next question is yours first.
Mr. Olsen, you have raised the possibility that if elected mayor, you could run the city without hiring a chief administrative officer. So is that a possibility or a promise? And what will determine whether you utilize that position?
Well, I have extensive experience in business. I have run a contracting firm in town for 20 years. I've employed people. I've got the educational background with a economics degree from Connecticut College and an MBA from Rensselaer. I'm not sure exactly what the CAO has been doing for the last 8 years. And we're paying twice for, in essence, the same service. With the city manager, we had one person running the city. Now we have two. And I think that this can be done effectively, efficiently, and it's a position that, although it's mandated by charter, that it doesn't necessarily need to be filled. And if I was to find myself overwhelmed as mayor, it certainly gives me the opportunity to reconsider at a later time. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, you have 90 seconds.
Yeah, after 4 years of experience in this position, I could not even imagine trying to run the city without the CAO position. He effectively manages our staff of over 200 employees, which is not a very, we don't have a very deep bench. We have no bench at all. So every individual that we have on the payroll has to pull their weight. The CAO organizes that. You know, he's in effect the manager of the team. It frees the mayor out to work on the issues of economic development, to work up in Hartford with our legislative delegation and our constitutional officers. It frees me up to do the constituent outreach. I can tell you that from the moment in the morning that we walk into that City Hall building, we are just full steam ahead all day long. This city is thriving, and with the short resources we have for staff, we are incredibly stretched thin and working hard to make sure that we're effective. I'm sure many of you out in the audience have seen the change over the last 4 years in the responsiveness of the government to your needs. And a lot of that has to do with coordination through the Chief Administrative Officer.
Mr. Olsen, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Well, needless to say, I agree with Mayor Passero on this, and that I think we're looking at redundancy, and it's costly. And considering that one of the big issues that we have incessantly is taxes and spending, I'm not sure that this is the position that we can afford. And I think that we ought to be looking at ways to be cutting spending and not expanding it. Each of the first two mayors has expanded our administration, and I think that has been counterproductive. We ought to be looking at other ways to do our business. Thank you.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 30 seconds.
This seems like a good time to point out that the mayor's salary was increased significantly under the last city council. There was a $27,000 raise, again, at a city council meeting with very little public participation. And so, as mayor, I would look at all of the positions, how much money the taxpayers of New London are paying to be served and who's doing the serving. And as mayor, I couldn't take a $110,000 salary in a city with a 30% poverty rate. That doesn't seem right to me.
Our next question goes to Mr. Olsen first. You have 60 seconds.
Mr. Olsen, as mayor, what direction would you provide to your police chief as to when it is appropriate to assist federal authorities in enforcement of immigration laws and when it is not?
Well, I think it's quite clear that we have policies in place, and I think that the chief and our police department should follow our policies that are already in place and handle things appropriately. And I think that they do that now, and that's the correct fashion to be dealing with these types of issues. And since you've brought up the issue of immigration, I think it's important that folks understand something, because I've been smeared, and it's really alarming, disappointing, and most folks should know better. Because I have personal experience dealing with immigration. My ex-wife came into this country from Indonesia, and I was able to sponsor her, her mother, and a sister. So I've had intimate dealings with the Immigration and Naturalization Service. So if anybody who casts stones at me, shame on them. Thank you.
Ms. Berrigan, 90 seconds for your response.
Sure. I think this question comes out of an incident that happened up at the courthouse. And now under Connecticut law, that incident wouldn't be allowed to happen, right? That our police forces are directed to only engage with ICE, immigration and customs enforcement around serious felonies. And so I'm grateful that that law is now in place and backs up what was passed in a resolution form here in the city of New London last year. And I guess I'll just take this opportunity to talk a little bit about public safety and how the needs of our community are best served by a police department that looks like the city of New London, that speaks the languages of the city of New London, and lives within city limits. And under the Berrigan administration, I would take steps to see that happens, that the policía habla español y otros idiomas de nuestra ciudad. So I have 15 more seconds, but maybe that's enough to say on this topic right now.
Mr. Olsen, 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Thank you. I would just like to add that in regards to immigration, just so there were a level of consistency, I strongly believe that this is a federal issue and that it really does not belong here in the local domain, and that we have issues that we should be dealing with our congressmen and senators. And from where I sit, I think both parties are falling on their sword and not doing their job. But it belongs there. In regards to the resolution, I did not support it. And in Sanctuary City, I don't support that either. I think it's back to the feds. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to respond.
No, I'm certainly not going to get involved in the failed national debate on immigration, but I can tell you that in the city of New London, it's my job as mayor to make sure that every resident in this city feels safe, feels protected, feels welcome, and understands that the city government is also here for them. I'm also very proud of our recruitment in the police department, the growth of the police department, their engagement in the community, including hiring a number of multilingual officers in our recent hirings. So we are working towards those goals.
The next question goes first to Ms. Berrigan. You have 60 seconds.
Ms. Berrigan, did I get that right? to Ms. Berrigan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Question from one of our readers. Are you a pacifist? And would you like to see Electric Boat, the city's largest taxpayer, cease submarine construction?
Yes. I am a pacifist. I believe that war is a failure of the imagination. As mayor, I would recognize that General Dynamics is the largest employer here, but I would also ask how many New Londoners are employed at General Dynamics, how many people within who are members of our city are employed there, and I would also really engage in a much more deep conversation with that company about what they make. I would point out that while they make submarines, there's a pithy little saying that I like, which is Raytheon makes missiles, and Boeing makes airplanes, and General Dynamics makes money. And that money, while they're the largest taxpayer, does not come to New London the way that it ought to.
Mr. Passero, you may respond. 90 seconds.
Thank you. And I certainly respect Frida's view on that. As the mayor, I have to be a pragmatist. And one of the relationships that I'm proud to have repaired is our city's relationship with Electric Boat. Electric Boat is driving the economy in this city. It's bringing in a wealth of human talent that is getting trained in sophisticated and technical jobs as well as manufacturing jobs. It's providing opportunities for our people. And it's really the great engine behind what's driving our local economy. And I want to capture every benefit in that. Do I have to put the blinders on what we're building? A little bit. But we're also building for our national security. Our city historically has been the center of our national security since its very beginning. The Navy started. The very first Navy was the privateers that sailed, essentially licensed pirates, that sailed out of this harbor to harass the British merchant ships during the Revolutionary War. And I cherish that history, and I cherish that military history, and I hope that these great machines are the deterrent that prevents war, and I'm proud of our part in their manufacture.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you. You know what
No,
the-
that's Ms. Berrigan
I'm
first.
sorry, I thought you,
Thanks.
clapping,
And that's 30 seconds? Yeah, I'm using it all up now. I guess I would just point out that, with a corporation like General Dynamics, we pay for it 3 or 4 times over, right? We pay as federal taxpayers, and then there are Connecticut state supports for workforce training, and then the people hired for those jobs are often making $35,000 a year, which in a state as expensive as Connecticut is not a path to a middle-class job. And so I'd like to look at all of that.
Mr. Olsen, yes, you have 30 seconds now.
and thank you. With the exodus of Pfizer, the facility on Pequot Avenue could have been laying dormant forever. It's not certainly designed for a local pizza house. I think that we are exceptionally fortunate that General Dynamics Electric Boat has moved into New London in that facility, and they're employing more people than Pfizer did. And you got a cadre of engineers, highly educated, highly skilled individuals, and now what we have to do is to capture these folks to stay in our community. Thank you.
The next question, but first I'm going to remind everybody that I know it's hard, everyone's enthusiastic here, to just hold the applause till the end so the candidates can hear the order that we're going in, and they'll have more time if we don't have to pause. So the next question will go first to Mr. Passero for 60 seconds.
Mr. Passero, you have said you're not satisfied with the level of funding that would flow to the city under the current plan to convert State Pier into a hub serving offshore wind power development. Would your administration oppose this project if the city is not adequately compensated?
I've sent that message loud and clear to all the parties at the table. I do not see how the state of Connecticut can support an operation in a facility in the city of New London that's going to generate billions and billions of dollars for the benefit of a Danish company, a huge energy conglomerate, and a quasi-public state agency, and leave the taxpayers in the city of New London out of that equation. So I am negotiating very hard. I expect to deliver a deal, and the days of the State Pier facility, the city of New London not benefiting off the State Pier facility, are going to end now.
Mr. Olsen, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. I must have misheard the mayor when we had the dog and pony show in the lobby of City Hall a few months ago when the governor and Mr. Coors came down along with Scott Bates. And when they were putting on their big show, the mayor was all in. And the promise was that our mayor was going to get a seat on the Port Authority Board. Hasn't been forthcoming. Hasn't been forthcoming. And we have the meeting at the Holiday Inn a couple of weeks ago, and the ante up just a little bit more scratch, and the mayor is all in. He's all aboard. Now he comes here in front of this crowd and has the audacity to say, no, what the heck is it? What is it? We, as a community, purchased the high-rises, the Winthrop high-rises for $185,000, taxpayer money, with the promise of this administration. I might add that I voted against that we would generate tax revenue. Now the state is interfering. I can't imagine that they're coming in for nothing. So we got a little something going on here. Lack of transparency has been a major problem with this administration. So let's get some clarity here, Mayor Passero. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, you can rebut.
I am all in. Perhaps my opponent did not hear the question. The question was, would I oppose it if the city did not get their fair share? I am all in. I just returned from a groundbreaking at Muddy Waters downtown. Orsted and Eversource are establishing offices downtown. I fully expect that this city, this state, and this region will not lose out on this opportunity. We're talking about vision and leadership here. We're not talking about poor me, the city, anymore. We're talking about our success. I'm working hard for our success. We will not be imposed on by the will of other people anymore. The state understands that now. These foreign companies and energy conglomerates understand that now.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to respond.
One of the things we're just learning about the pier project now is that there's a foreign trade zone that's a part of it, and that's something that I would like to hear a lot more about. I would like to learn more about the impact of that on our local economy and on our state economy as we balance out all of the various gives and takes that are part of a deal this complicated. The idea that we would kind of maquiladorize ourselves in some way is something that troubles me.
Ms. Berrigan, you have the first response to the next question.
Yeah, Rita wanted to know from our mayoral candidates that if they are elected, what would they do as mayor to ensure that all city residents feel safe to cooperate with the 2020 census and are counted?
Yeah, good question. We need everybody to be counted in this census. We need every voice to be heard. The census, those numbers are tied to the money we get for our schools. They're tied to all sorts of other things. So as mayor, I would hold lots of forums in rooms like this encourage people to come out, learn what's going to be asked, and learn how and why the census is so important. I would encourage going door to door. I would encourage work within the schools and in other places where we might not be connecting to New London residents. And once again, I would have that happen not just in English and Spanish, but also in Creole and the other languages that are represented within our community.
Mr. Olsen, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Census taking, which is done every 10 years, is exceptionally important for many, many different reasons, not just to count individuals, but benefits that emanate out of Washington in particular, but may also trickle down into our state through Hartford. But I think it's incumbent upon our local government to work with and support and advocate for the census takers that are working around the community. And I think it's important as a community leader, as mayor, to take that lead and be the individual that is the face of the program. Give people confidence that they're doing the right thing. They should not be afraid, and that New London supports what they're doing and their need to participate. And I think that that's achievable, and we can do it. Thank you.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Well, there's not much to rebut there. I think that was great. And I think another site which would be really fruitful within our community is all of the churches, because that is a space where so many people feel comfortable, feel like their voices are heard, and where they are already part of a community. And so turning out church leaders and faith leaders seems like a key piece of this as well.
Mr. Passero, you have 30 seconds.
We are already working very hard. We have formed a complete count committee that has engaged many stakeholders, and I thank you for those of you in the audience who are part of the complete count committee. We're working with the U.S. Census. Part of that groundwork to make sure we count everybody in our community was that resolution. The resolution was very important to reassure our undocumented citizens, our residents, that they also must be counted and to get them comfortable to be counted. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, the next question is yours first. 60 seconds.
Mr. Passero, in the interview with me, you spoke very highly of your department heads and expressed your confidence in the job they're doing, yet the reality is several of them don't live in the city. The city charter says they're supposed to live in the city. Doesn't this situation have to be reconciled at some point?
Well, the only way it will be reconciled is if the City Council appoints a Charter Revision Commission, and that Charter Revision Commission does its job to reconcile conflicting elements of our charter. The charter currently provides the mayor with the executive authority to run the city. I am responsible for the success of this city, and I've made it clear from the very beginning of my term that I will no longer deceive the residents of our community with some sort of charade as to who lives in the city, who doesn't. I lived here my whole life. Department heads never lived in the city because it's impossible to get the talent you need in a lot of cases. Many of my department heads do live in the city, but when I need talent to make this city successful, and we have moved a long way in 4 years, that's the duty I have under the charter that reigns supreme in my mind, and I do hope we clear up this contradiction.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 90 seconds for your response.
I think the message it sends to the city of New London, to the people of New London, when we don't hire within, when we don't even look within first, is that sorry, can you hear me now? The message is that we are not smart enough, that we're not talented enough, that we don't deserve the $150,000 salaries that people outside of our city earn to make our lives better. How does that work? How can people who are not a part of this community work as hard as we would work for our own community? And I'm slightly put off by the microphone problem here, so sorry I'm not being as definitive as this question really deserves. We can figure it out, right? We know what's best for the people of New London, and to say that hiring the best means looking far outside of our city borders, frankly sends a message to young people in particular, and that's not a message that I want to send to my young people and to the young people of our town. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, you have 30 seconds.
So
to rebut.
that is not the message we're sending to our town. How many finance directors do you think, municipal finance directors, live in the city of New London and applied for that job? How many do you think, if there is a qualified one that wants to come here, can disrupt their family and move here? I'm going to use Felix Reyes as the example. He is a New London product. He is an example to our community. He comes back to this city after going out to make his reputation and his name, and he is working diligently. I couldn't think of a harder worker for the city, and he's a whaler. And he's just in a point of his life right now where he can't uproot his family, and I will take that talent. Thank you.
Mr. Olsen, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. When elected, you take an oath to uphold the law. And in New London, that's the charter and our code of ordinances. And I don't think as an elected official, the mayor in particular, you can pick and choose those laws that you like to enforce. Now, we have that provision that residency is required. And to flaunt that, I think, sends an awful message to the community. Awful. And this is something that could be addressed in sitting in committee. Thank you. My time has run out.
And Mr. Olsen, you have the first response to the next question for 60 seconds.
Before I move on to my next question, I just want to clear something for the audience. It was clear that Ms. Berrigan supports the residential ordinance, if I'm correct. And it sounds like Mayor Passero would just as soon see it changed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But it wasn't clear from Mr. Olsen. I didn't get, would you repeal it or would you stick
I
with
want
it?
to see the issue go to a referendum through a charter revision commission and let the residents have that opportunity, which they deserve. And the mayor can take the lead and ask the council to do this. And this guy hasn't done that in 4 years.
This guy's been on the council
But
2 years and has
Not to
never.
belabor the point, but would you ask the council to keep it as it is or would you ask the council to eliminate it?
I think that I want the residents to make that call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr.
Next
Mr.
question for
Olsen,
Mr. Olsen. Has city government done enough to address the blight problem in the city, if you feel there is one? And if not, what additional steps would you propose as mayor?
I think we've been much too passive on blight. I think it also creates a problem in terms of our overall vitality. And when people come in and there's bulky waste, excessive garbage, et cetera, overgrown lawns and houses that are not on code. And we need to be much more aggressive with this if we're going to get the development and investment that we are craving in this community. We have a problem. And the way I think we need to address it is to be much more aggressive in terms of our citations. And if need be, the city has got to budget appropriately. If we have to go in and cut grass or take care of things and do it, and if they don't, and then send a bill. And if folks don't pay their bill, then you lien the property. Ultimately, the city will get paid, and we keep the city looking much more pristine and inviting for outsiders. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, you have 90 seconds for your response to that.
Yes, when I was elected, there was no organized or structured program to address the blight issue in the city. So I've inherited years and years of lax enforcement. I successfully achieved the council's approval to hire a blight officer. This is one of the new positions that I am sometimes criticized for expanding the government. I think it's important. We have changed the ordinances over the last 4 years so that we can have more tools to address blight. We are aggressively addressing it all over the city. Blight is one of those issues where you set up the structure and the system to address it, and then you have to be persistent. It's not going to go away tomorrow. You have to set up the system that you gradually start chipping away at it, chipping away at it, and chipping away at it. There is some of the blight issues are just, the blight officer simply has to ask for cooperation. The property owners comply. Some of those violators have this libertarian streak. They believe it's their property, government should not interfere, and then we settle in for a battle. And some of those properties, the situation is not easily resolved because ownership is either in dispute or unclaimed zombie properties, and there are brownfield issues. So it's a very complicated process we're attacking.
Mr. Olsen, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Again, I think that this level of passive approach is not getting the job accomplished. We need to be much more aggressive. I'll reinforce that. And we can implement policies to accomplish that goal. And until we do, it's going to make it very, very difficult to achieve some of the goals that we have in terms of increasing our grand list, stabilizing our taxes, increasing the, well, my time is up. I'm telling you, I'm having a tough time here with that. Thank you.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 30 seconds to respond to that question.
Sure. I'll hopefully be able to make 2 quick points. One is that the budget for public works appears to be static over the last number of years. Since 2016, there has been actually a decrease in the budget for public works. And I think that in the fight against blight, public works is the ally and needs to be funded more. And then if I had more time, I would talk about what homeowners can do, but I'll stop.
Next question goes first to Mr. Olsen. 60 seconds to respond.
Mr. Olsen, you criticized the mayor for making substantial cuts in the Board of Education's requested budget. Would you be willing to support increasing taxes to give the school board the funding that it feels is necessary to get its job done?
Well, I'll give a specific example, and that is this year I was willing to increase the school board budget $400,000, which would have translated into about $250,000 increase. I think that investment in education is imperative. Quite frankly, we're trying to run a regional school district, magnet school district, and our neighbors are watching what we're doing. We're not operating in a vacuum here. And if we're not providing a top-flight educational system, this magnet school district can fail. And if it fails, we're going to be on the hook for millions. I mean millions of dollars in lost revenue. We can't afford to fail. Thank you.
90 seconds for Ms. Berrigan.
How many?
90.
90. Okay, great. You know, the education budget is another budget that has essentially been flatlined for the last number of years, right? $42 million in fiscal year 2016, and now just up a little bit, a little under $1 million in the proposed budget for 2020. In that same time period, our student body has increased significantly. And the school budget has taken on added responsibility, right? The city council voted to make the schools responsible for their own maintenance and their own, you know, kind of the roles that were taken on by Public Works in the past. That essentially was a $50,000 to the budget. And so while that's not reflected, the burden of the school, what's the responsibility of the school has increased significantly. So I would see funding education much more and really trusting our educators more and not nickel and diming them at the city council level. And me and this microphone are having a little bit of a problem. Maybe I'm trying.
I think if you
Oh yeah.
speak right in it.
Oh, speak right into it. Okay. So and my time is up, but I would support education.
Could we give her a few extras? I mean, it was sort of a technical issue. 15 seconds, maybe, to wrap up, because I know it was distracting. If that's okay.
Yeah. So in summary, under a Berrigan administration, I would be trusting our educators and funding our young people and supporting the schools robustly. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Mr. Olsen, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Thank you. I would just like to continue regarding this past budget cycle, that even with this small increase that I proposed, I was unable to get a second. So the 6 Democratic colleagues that I have, those who support education, did not. Think about that. I'm advocating for education. It was a no-go. Another big issue regarding the schools is the lack of a New London high school. We were a year behind. Hopefully get to that later. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to respond.
Yes, education funding was threatened seriously when I took over. The city was not in very good financial shape. Our fund balance was down around $2 million. It is now up to about $14 million. We are in much better shape. I'm proud of the funding that we've provided the schools. We did increase the budget this year by nearly $500,000. That's a 3.1 increase in taxpayer support, and the 4-year average for increasing taxpayer support of our school system is close to 3% a year. Those are the facts.
Our next question goes first to Ms. Berrigan, 60 seconds.
Yes, the New London school system recently, as I'm sure all our audience knows, had a terrible scandal with the arrest of several personnel with charges of sexual assaulting, in some cases, students, and of some personnel not reporting allegedly, what they knew about these potential. Do you see a role? One, are you satisfied with how the school system administration has handled this scandal? And 2, do you see a role for the mayor in making sure these problems do not reoccur?
Great. Yes and yes is the short answer. What happened at Benny Dover last year is unconscionable, and the burden bared both by our young people and our educators, the family and the caregivers, is such a heavy weight. And we really lost. We lost a lot of teachers. We lost a fair number of students, and we lost some standing in the region. And all of that is very troubling for me as a member of this community, as a parent of 3 young children. And so I would bring to the City Hall a parent's lens on all of this, and a need for continued focus, continued healing, continued trust building, continued work within the schools around this issue. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, you have 90 seconds for your response.
I've been fortunate to have the support of our Human Services Director in the city's approach to addressing the scandal. We, as everybody might be aware, we went up to Hartford and met with the State Child Advocate, sought their advice, and are working closely with that office to coordinate the city's approach with that. But also, it's important to support the teachers in our system and make sure that they have the support to understand that it shouldn't reflect on all of them. The other thing that's important is the greatest threat to our school system right now is not funding. We've been through about 7 superintendents in a very short period of time. Just in the time that I've been mayor, we've been through 3 superintendents. So my focus right now is to support Cynthia Ritchie, who I think is wonderfully talented, a gift to our community. She has addressed this problem aggressively. She's working very hard at solving this problem. She's supporting our children and our teachers, and she will be the success as we roll out our all-magnet school district. So I am providing her, and I hope to work closely with her. The revolving doors of superintendents is the greatest threat to the school system. So I would encourage the community to get behind her in this moment. Thank you.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Yeah, I would underline and amplify what was just said, and really herald teachers and paraprofessionals within our school system. I point out that my husband joined Nathan Hale as a paraprofessional this year, working with in a classroom for kids who are really struggling at Nathan Hale, and it's been an added educational experience for our whole family to see the work that goes on, and I'm just appreciative of all of that work.
Mr. Olsen, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to respond.
Thank you. This issue has the potential to be crippling, and as a community, we have to all rally around our educational system, but we've got a twofold issue here, with issues with the police is investigating illegalities and criminal issues, and then you've got issues regarding internal policies, which the schools are dealing with. And I think an element of frustration that we all have right now is there haven't been any answers. And that really makes it very, very daunting for us. We don't know what's going on. The newspapers are our main source of information, and as good as they do, it's not good enough on this one at the time. You know, again, as I point out, we're running a regional district, and our neighbors are watching. We have to be on top of our game. Thank you.
We have time for one more question to complete our full hour of debate, and it will begin with Mr. Passero. You have a 60-second first response.
Mr. Passero, do you have any plans to revive the pay-as-you-throw or rental of city office space initiatives if elected to a second term?
I believe that addressing our solid waste crisis is important from both a financial view and a sustainability view. The City Council, working with the City Council, the Smart Waste, Solid Waste initiative has segued into the Municipal Solid Waste Task Force. They've completed their work, and we currently are taking their recommendations and turning them into an ordinance to present to the City Council. This is an issue we must address. If you drive around town, you can see your taxpayer dollars just being wasted with municipal solid waste abuse. The office space issue is complicated, and in 15 seconds I'm not going to explain it, but I can tell you that we've done the analysis. We want to renovate City Hall, and we would much rather relieve the burden of maintaining the 2 other office buildings, the bank and the Stanton building, because we believe in a 10-year plan we could save millions of dollars for the taxpayers. So we'll be revisiting that.
Mr. Olsen, you have 90 seconds to respond to the question.
Thank you. Both of these issues have been major, major failures. They've wasted an extraordinary amount of time and resources. I can't think of anything, and I've been now in my 10th year on the City Council, where the blowback on the pay-as-you-throw garbage program has been so significant and severe. And I feel proud, lone Republican on the council, along with help from Councilor Tranquita, to slow this baby down enough to give you, the public, an opportunity to weigh in. And boy, did you. You said, hell no. Hell no. And we had the same situation when it came to the consolidation of city offices. Myself, along with Councilor Sadie, able to slow it down just enough for the public to get a chance to weigh in and say, not a good idea. Not a good idea. I would argue that we've already consolidated. We've vacated the Martin Center. Folks have moved into the Stanton building, which has been cleaned up inside and out. And the others are in the bank building on Masonic Street. We're all set. We're in good shape. The thought of going into a high-end office space so we can do it makes no sense to me or the public. Thank you.
Mr. Passero, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
What I'm tired of is the failures, the failure to address issues that we must address. A mayor's job is to provide vision, leadership, and guts. I can tell you where I stand on the residency requirement. And I can tell you where I stand on these difficult issues, and I'll show you pictures, and I'll explain to you, and I'll show you the facts, and I'll show you the numbers, and I'll try to educate you. I'm not afraid of failure. What I'm afraid of is a failing city. So if I propose an initiative that I think is right, and the citizens resist it, I will continue to educate them. I'll respect your opinion, but I'll continue to advocate for the success of the city.
Ms. Berrigan, you have 30 seconds to respond to that question.
Well, I want to use this a little bit of time to just give a shout out to the Solid Waste Commission. It doesn't sound super exciting, but they took the agito that was generated by Pay As You Throw and turned it into a plan. And I think it's a good plan. The Green Party thinks it's a good plan, and excited to see it become law. And I wouldn't be a community gardener if I didn't say that municipal composting should be more of a part of that plan and would save us a ton, literally tons, of money. So look for that. Smell it too, yeah.
Our candidates each will have 60 seconds for a closing statement, and we're going in reverse alphabetical order. So, Mr. Passero.
Over the last 4 years, the city has gone from shaky ground to a firm foundation. Over the last 4 years, the city has grown in stature and influence. Over the last 4 years, property values have grown, investment and development has swelled exponentially, and the grand list has grown by over 15%. We have achieved a degree of fiscal stability that permitted a $3.5 million decrease in the tax rate for this current fiscal year. That's unprecedented. In fact, the mill rate is now within $500,000 of what it was when I took office. The narrative of continually high taxes is now a false narrative in this city. The days of outside forces imposing their will on our city are over. Mark my words, from here on in, the residents of this city will receive their fair share of any revenue that's generated at the state pier facility. We have made significant structural changes in our approach to the quality of life initiatives, establishing a blight officer, a parking director, a human services director, and restored leadership, morale, and staffing in the police department. Our success is largely due to the team that I assembled. I want nothing more than to keep the team together, pulling for this city. For me, it's not about political ambition. I love this city. I hope to get your support to continue. Thank you.
Mr. Olsen, you have a minute for your statement.
Thank you, and I want to thank everybody again for coming out. This has been a very enlightening evening, and I'm privileged to have an opportunity to participate, and I appreciate your attention. But I must tell you, we can do better. We cannot accept what's been transpired, not only this term, but the prior term. And we've got a little smoke and mirrors going on regarding taxes and the mill rate. I want to remind you that we had a reevaluation this past year. And with reevaluation, the grand list grows. And when the grand list grows, the mill rate goes down. That's just the way it is. He's taking credit for it. It has nothing to do with anything that he's done. Nothing. I would also like to remind folks that over the last few years, the education budget is not going up as high as he has claiming it, more around 1% per year. This is not the education mayor. I think we need to have a gut check on these things. Misrepresentation is not healthy.
Ms. Berrigan, your closing statement?
Thank you.
Great. I am so excited to be sitting up here. I thought I was going to be standing, so I wrote down standing. So excited to be sitting up here and excited about this opportunity for all of us to work together to serve the people of New London with a sustainable and affordable community, with just systems, and with a greener future. And I'm running for change, and I'm inspired by the legacy of strong women within our community. I'm thinking particularly of Eunice Waller and Jane Glover. I'm inspired by the volunteerism that I see within our community, people showing up and picking up and working together. And the Green Party hopes to be a part of that energy, hopes to lead some of that energy, and hopes to harness that so that we can all work together for a better future. I'm running with curiosity, I'm running with integrity. I have a lot of energy, which is going to carry me through the next month or so, and write Frida on line E. Thank you very much.
I'd like to let you know before we end that the candidates will be available here to speak with you until 7:45 p.m. And I want to thank the candidates, the New London Day, our League of Women Voters Volunteers, and the Jennings School staff for setting up the room, and the Board of Education for their generosity in letting us use the space, and especially you, the audience, for coming out and participating in a great process. And just remember to come back and vote on Tuesday, November 5th. If you'd like to give a hand to all your candidates now, please do.